Shanti, good evening, and welcome everyone to our Saturday online workshop series. The topic for today's workshop series is a very interesting one. It's the attitude that heals, the choice to change. And for our workshop today, we have a very special guest speaker, and she is Sister Kala. Sister Kala has been with the Brahma Kumaris for over 40 years. She is a pediatrician by training and a spiritual teacher by passion. She is the founding director of the Point of Life Foundation, an organization that works to bring increased awareness of the influence of spirituality on physical health. And along with that, she's also the director of Peace Village, which is one of our retreat centers in upstate New York. So there she devotes her time on creating innovative programs which have the spiritual touch and programs with a lot of spiritual depth. And she's a guiding and a spiritual resource there at the Peace Village. So without taking much time, we'll keep this introduction very short. So I'd like to welcome Sister Kala. Sister Kala, welcome to Los Angeles. You're here with us today, and we're so happy to have you. Shanti, and welcome.
Yes, indeed. I do feel I'm in Los Angeles, sunny Los Angeles, right?
That's right.
And beautiful Los Angeles. Yes, thank you so much for this lovely invitation. And thank you also for choosing tonight's topic, which is, of course, very close to everyone's heart, but also very close to my heart. And of course, as per the introduction, you would say it's close to my heart because I come from that background, right? Medical background or healing profession. But I think all of you will agree that the meaning of healing is now expanded to cover the healing of the whole universe, right? It's not just about one person coming in front of one person with an ailment or a sickness or a pain and taking care of that person, and we would say, that's healing. But it's about many, many, many different things. And I think we're all very much aware of this systemic influence that we all have had as human beings. First of all, on our body, on each other, on our minds, on nature, on the state of the world, on the state of all of the systems that we call as the systems of the world. So I think it's really about bringing back to that original state of health and well-being, everything and everyone under the sun, including the sun, right? And you would all agree that even the sun needs healing, maybe. Yes. And I say that because, there in Los Angeles, you have the bright sun all the time, but not necessarily us here on the East Coast. So there's lots of changes that have happened that have been the result of our life and how we have led our lives. So I'm very sensitive to the fact that healing is a huge subject. And so I think we're just going to kind of start scratching the surface of how we can play our little part, how we can give our little finger, as we usually say. It's a huge mountain to be lifted, but how can we give our little finger to lift that huge mountain of a world that is sick in many ways, right? So where do we start? Perhaps we can start with just a short reflection. Each one take a few minutes and just ponder on this one word, healing, and with what it brings to your mind. Who needs healing? Who can heal? What does it mean to heal? And how could that healing come about? Each one of us, right from where we sit and how we see things, how could we participate in this healing process? I know these are just a few minutes and few moments to reflect on something so huge. And yet I know that some of you would have been thinking about it much before this workshop, even before you came. You would have your own thoughts and feelings. And so hopefully we can deepen some of those thoughts and feelings as we listen and as we interact. I want to start by giving a little bit of my own experience of this word healing. When I started with my medical career, healthcare career, it was not something that was often used, this word healing. What we talked about was what's the treatment, what's the cure, right? We didn't often talk about healing. And I think that's a reflection of the state of where that whole profession stands today. Of course, that might have changed today, but way back when I was in medical school, this is what I was thinking that, we never even, yes, of course, in a very technical way, we would talk about healing, but not necessarily healing in a holistic way. We would think about, fixing something, curing something, treating something, but what is involved in that process, that how do we facilitate that healing process? We didn't much think about it. And it's not until I was in the spiritual um, life, I should say, I was exposed to the spiritual concepts that I started to even think about this. And even then, it took me a long time to connect with this word healing, because healing was often connected with, something that is not traditional. For example, something that the traditional medicine did not believe in, and it was kind of not proven It was not evidence based, and it was just, holistic, quote unquote, holistic ways of healing. But really, it took me a while to connect with this basic word, healing. And when I really think about it now, healing is something, that we as human beings are so gifted with. That is such a natural phenomenon. It's such a natural part of being a human. Now, of course, you get a little scratch or you get a little wound somewhere, and there's not a lot that you have to do, for that little scratch or that wound to heal. It kind of just is asking for time in most instances. Of course, yes, you have to take care of it, clean it, protect it, and, not allow it to get infected and so on and so forth. But really, come to think of it, look at little children, how they heal so fast. And of course, as we age, that healing process takes longer and longer. So there's something about the natural quality that we are endowed with in terms of physical healing. And I think it is the same thing with all kinds of healing to do with human healing, human beings healing, whether it is to do with mentally, something goes wrong sometime, emotionally, something goes wrong sometime, spiritually, something goes wrong sometime. But we have all the capacity to come back to bounce back to normal, as we say. And so there is a certain amount of up and down that we go through in life. But there is also the natural phenomenon of how we can bounce back, given the normal set of circumstances. But then again, looking at the state of everything today, looking at the state of health today, looking at the state of the world today, looking at the state of the climate affairs today, looking at the state of relationships today, I think you begin to wonder that perhaps, yes, we've been healing, but we've been healing on a superficial level. And that was exactly what my experience was coming to spirituality, especially coming from a practice background of medicine, pediatrics, particularly, that what we were able to do is just touch the tip of the iceberg of this huge bump and, this huge ice block of what we call illness or disease. Yes, of course, somebody comes with a symptom, somebody comes with, specific thing going wrong, and we are able to identify. And of course, these days, what's happening more and more is, you're not even having a symptom, you're just finding out casually that something terribly wrong is, with your intestine or with your body or some part of the body. And so there's so much that's hidden that we don't even know of. And all of a sudden, one fine morning, just because of a blood test or just because of a doctor's visit, we get to know that this is what's happening. So, how does it all come about? How do we end up in a situation where we don't know where, our disease has come from or our pain has come from or whatever? And of course, we have come to believe that that's part of life. And yes, definitely it's part of the life as it is today. But my thinking when I came was, and when I was exposed to the whole concept of the spiritual underpinnings, of our whole living and our way of living, uh, I really began to realize that what we have been doing, as I said, is just touch the tip of the iceberg of illness, which is really about something much deeper that's happening, in the mind, in the spirit, in our emotions, in our soul, so to speak. And so, where do we start? Which comes first? Is it that we can fix the body and then that will also fix the mind? Is it that we have to fix the mind first and then, of course, it can fix the body? What comes first? And so, this was like a big question. But understanding the self as a soul, as a spirit, actually put a lot of light in this whole healing process. And furthermore, understanding the whole dynamics of the soul with the body, with the matter, with the universe, with each other, put even more light on how we can heal perhaps relationships, how we can heal some of the imbalances that we have created in nature, how we can heal some of the even the major relationships, the conflicts in the society, between races, between religions, between this and that. So it's like a step by step, that we have to, and it may seem like a humongous task that we are taking on, but also a lot of solace and comfort came that, whatever we start inside, if it is genuine, if it is a genuine healing of the self, of the spirit, then little by little by little, it will begin to impact every aspect of life, starting, of course, from the body, our own living environment, our living relationships, and of course, in a bigger scope of things, if enough of us do it, then it will also impact the healing of the energies around in the world. And so I found a lot of hope when I came to the path of spirituality, that healing is something that is a natural phenomenon. The only thing that we have to do is allow it to happen. That we should not come in the way of healing, which is what mostly happens, right? Were we meant to be in pain? No. Why are we in pain? Why do we experience pain? Something went wrong, right? So if you're walking along the path, you don't experience pain. But if you fall down, if you hurt yourself, then you feel the pain. You've hurt a part of the body and that hurts. So in the normal run of things, we are not meant to experience pain and discomfort. But because something went wrong, whether consciously or unconsciously, whether we like to admit it or not, we have come to a point where there is being, and of course, today's topic has a lot to healing through attitude. And again, what attitude look, right? And what do we mean by that most of the times? Attitude, not very good meaning, right? It usually use negative, the positive effects. It's something that somebody carries, things getting better. So therefore we say this one has an attitude. But attitude is both ways, right? Attitude is something that we create, and it's something that we actually carry with ourselves without even knowing about it.
Sound is
These,
broken.
it's almost like the virus,
Tell me something, sister.
right? That we carry. Does this sound not good?
Yeah, it's been like broken sound for last 1 or 2 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. How about now? Little bit better or no?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to try and continue. And if not, then I'll have to disconnect and connect again, right? Are you able
Yes.
to hear me now? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. And maybe people can turn off their video, that might help.
Okay. Except for me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So as I was saying, attitude is something that is very subtle, and yet we carry it with us all the time. Sometimes even thoughts, we become aware of our thoughts. But attitude is something that we oftentimes, it's like an underlying thing, and we don't even know about it. We are not even aware of it. And so what happens is automatically the attitude kind of shows up in the way we act or interact or say things, even in the tone of voice or the words that we use. And so we sometimes are caught unaware, and people are caught unaware. How is the sound now?
It's much better.
It's good now. It's good now.
Okay.
It's good.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. So, you see how it gets very tricky, how we had a very, hard time to kind of get this virus under control because it was unseen. We didn't know who was carrying it, who was not carrying it. We tried all kinds of things. And then we came up with, yes, mask is very good. Yes, hand washing is good. We came up with all the strategies, right? So we have to now treat attitude something similar to that. That what is it that that we carry with ourselves that impacts our way of thinking, our way of feeling, and our way of even looking at each other, or how we interact with each other, how we communicate with each other. So I think it's something, it's kind of a subtle energy that we build over time. It's not an overnight thing. Something that we maybe at one point in time we might have had a conscious thought or feeling about particular person, for example, and then after a while we kind of forget that that's the conscious thought that I had, but the feeling behind it, the attitude behind it lingers on. And so even if the person appears in front of you totally changed, for example, but I will still be holding that attitude towards that person, right? Because I've already created it. It's already there, sitting in my mind or in my soul, as I would say it. And it's based on an awareness or a thinking process way back when, right? And today it lingers on as attitude. And therefore, because of that, I will say, oh, but I don't trust this person. I don't like this person. I don't want to work with this one, and so on and so forth. So it's an attitude, then we say. But like this, there are so many things, layers of attitudes that we have kind of built one on top of the other. And in so doing, what has happened is that we have not been very objective in our way of perceiving things and people. So we have kind of been operating based on our attitude. And so one of the things, the statements or the slogans that I have been using lately, especially when we talk amongst people who are caring for other people in hospitals and so on, what am I walking into the room with in my patient's room, for example? That's just an example. If I'm a healer or if I'm in the healing profession and I'm walking into a room, a patient's room, for example, or a patient walks into my room, for example, and I already have certain kind of presupposition ideas. Yes, this person, first and foremost, this person is patient, right? And I'm supposed to get this person better. I'm supposed to cure this person. I'm supposed to make this person feel better. So there's already a pre-given, supposition in my head, and that puts me in a totally different kind of a mentality or mindset. Instead of saying that this is a human being and he has come for this interaction with me, again, as a human being, I have the fortune of interacting with this person. Of course, the reason may be that the body is not sick, well, and there's some sickness, and I'm supposed to be taking care of that. So that then becomes the forefront of my awareness, right? And then when I form my attitude based on that awareness, it's totally different. It's not one of pressure, it's not one of anxiety. It's not one of just looking at the grossness, the physical complaints and the person's complaint, but really it is of looking at the deeper personality, of who is in front of me. So I begin to see that, in reality, in real life, that, there is even a deeper layer than attitude. And what is that deeper layer? Is that layer of awareness that I carry with me. And so just as I would check before I walk into the room, if I have washed my hand, if I'm wearing my mask, double mask, whatever, what I need to also do, check with my, is what kind of attitude and awareness am I walking into the room with? You know, is it, of course, that definitely I need to do what I need to do, but I should never forget, that basic, beautiful human energy that I carry with me. And by that, what I mean is we all, as human beings, are beings of peace and love and understanding and giving, right? Sharing from that very beautiful insight that we all hold inside. So never to forget that, and I could see that literally, when I used to be in practice, that as soon as I started to shift my awareness and my attitude, the whole response would change from the patient, from the little children, from their parents. They would be less tense, they would not cry so much, so all kinds of changes begin to happen. And that, I feel, that's the first part. Treatment comes much later, but the first interaction that I have with someone, what kind of an impact does it leave on that person? Now, I have only taken the example of hospital and patient and room and getting, but it actually applies to any area of life, right? Even if you're working in an organization, for example, and you happen to be the receptionist, right? And you have answered someone, or someone has answered the phone and didn't have a very good interaction with that person. And then when that person actually shows up or talks to the next person and the next person, the impact of that first interaction will still be carried by that person. It already has an attitude, right? You have already been the reason, the cause for creating that negative attitude or doubtful attitude in that person. So we begin to see how important these subtle exchange of energies is, because we live in a time when every little thing counts, right? Every word that someone says, every look that someone has towards you, because we've become so sensitive because of our own insecurities and so much going on around us. We have become quite anxious. And so every little thing, around us kind of impacts us. And so we need to be very careful, in having the right awareness, the right attitude, and therefore also the right way of interacting, looking, and communicating with each other, the person. So therefore, what I really mean to say is that each one of us is a healer in our own right. Nobody has to be sick, quote unquote, for anybody else to be a healer, right? We're all looking for this healing energy, which is really an uplifting energy, an energy that comes to tell us that I am good, I am fine, that I am divine, that makes us really hopeful. This is what healing really is all about. It's a way of uplifting the energy. Yes, of course, there are some of us who are trained or who are supposed to be working in the field of physical healing or emotional healing or mental healing or whatever. But I think in our normal day-to-day interaction with each other, a lot of healing is required because we have knowingly or unknowingly, consciously or unconsciously, we have left, hurts in the minds of each other, in the minds of our own selves. Nobody to be blamed. It all starts with our own self. It all starts with our own image and way of looking at our own self. Who is the first person that we got hurt by? My own self, right? It's strange, but it's when I started to have less of respect and regard for myself and love for myself and value for everything that I have in my life, it's then that I started to mistreat myself. And that's when I began to be feeling hurt. And this is this is a concept that we hold very highly and dearly within the Brahma Kumaris, that how we treat ourselves has so much to do with what others would treat us as, and also about how we would treat others. Everything starts with the self. So what do? Is we have to really get to know ourselves in our purest form, in our most original form, our positive form, and that's what the whole philosophy behind, um, building a positive attitude is all about. That we build with that awareness, and so of course we will talk about that and do that a little bit later. But I also want to talk maybe about all the little things that we can do to kind of really look at our area of attitude that we hold and how we can change. First of all, I think our whole relationship with nature, first and foremost. How do we treat nature and how do we allow nature to treat us? Do we understand nature? Do we value nature? Do we recognize the beauty of nature, the laws of nature, for example? There is so much of order and, what do you call, timeliness even within nature. It does everything in its own time, right? We cannot rush it. In the middle of winter, if we want bright, a hot day, sunny day in, here in New York, we can't rush it. We have to wait for the summertime to come, right? It has its own rhythm. It has its own, and what do we have to do? Is we have to align ourselves then with the ways of nature. I love this phrase, the pace of nature is it's very rhythmic. It's very slow, or it takes its own time. We cannot really rush it. And so one of the things that we have done to ourselves, which I think is kind of hurting ourselves, that we have tried to disregard this aspect of the pace of nature. We want to accomplish so much in so little time that we are willing to stay up the whole night, live through stay up the whole night to kind of present the project. So ambitious, so I wouldn't say egoistic, but ambitious for sure, and driven, so to speak. So it comes from, of course, a false sense of what is true accomplishment. What we call here the physical consciousness has kind of overtaken the spiritual consciousness and of that connectedness with nature, right? And therefore we will defy the clock. We will defy the 24 hours and we'll say, I can do it. But really the human body needs its rest, right? The human mind needs its rest. No? Same thing with food. We can say, I'll skip lunch today, I'll do, a quick, one today, I'll just do it over, my conference call or whatever. And we kind of put anything into the mouth. We don't even know what we're eating. Now, this poor body, it needs a little more attention, right? So it's really about, understanding, because body is actually part of nature. We feel very strongly about that. It's made out of the 5 elements, the molecules, the atoms of matter have come to create it. So regard for nature, understanding nature, aligning ourselves with nature has a lot to do with our daily habits, right? So even if we just start looking at our daily habits of eating and sleeping and resting and you know um, walking and exercising and all of that, so much of that is really going back to the pace of nature, mm, to honor that rhythm within nature, right? The second thing that I want to bring up in the way of talking about healing is the way we breathe. I think, and this has become a big thing these days, breathing. It's a year of breathing, almost. So it's small wonder that this virus, the main attack of this virus was on our breathing system, on the lung system, the pulmonary system. So we have disregarded or lack of respect for the way we were meant to be, the way we were meant to breathe. Mm. Now you will ask me, what do you mean? How are we supposed to breathe? And breathing is very, very deeply connected with the way we think. We all know that, right? Yeah. The more anxious we are, the more in a state of stress we are, the more under pressure we are, the less attention we pay to breathing, and the more shallow our breathing becomes, right? So, of course, yes, we are breathing for the sake of breathing, namesake breathing, but are we taking full advantage, full benefit of the air that can go in and the air that can come out? Are we getting out all the carbon dioxide? Are we getting in as much oxygen as possible? Right? And we can, but we have kind of limited that, and it's again has to do with our sense of anxiety and how the nervous system responds to that sense of anxiety, sympathetic response. It gets under pressure, the heart rate goes up, all kinds of other problems come in. But anything that one little step that we can do to cut off that vicious cycle, to change that vicious cycle, is to pay attention to our breathing, right? And this is why um, even before we can start to work on the mind, which is a little bit more subtle, and maybe you will say it's a little bit more difficult. But breathing is something that we can see and feel and perceive, right? And we can change it quickly. So one of the things I have been trying with myself and finding a lot of benefit from is paying attention to breathing and aligning it more and more to that natural rhythm, slow rhythm, right? Inspire, taking in breath, taking out. And these days there is a famous, there's a common belief that taking out, which is our expiration, is just as important or perhaps even more important than breathing in, because we accumulate a lot of toxins, and we are really not giving ourselves the advantage of the full effect of breathing well when we don't do that well. So count in to 4, count out to 8, something like that. So it kind of gives a message to the brain, when we start consciously start paying attention to our breathing, pattern. What it is doing is it's giving a message to the brain that everything is okay. And when we start breathing fast or shallow, the brain is getting the message, recirculating that message that there is something wrong. There's something that you're under stress for. So you have to breathe shallow. You have to breathe fast. So again, it's like a cycle, a vicious cycle that sets in motion. So what I'm thinking now is, what are some of the quick fix ways of changing the deeper habits and the attitudes that we hold? It may not be so easy. Say, for example, if you're in a situation that is tense or in a difficult situation with a person, it may not be so easy to change the way you think about that person instantly, and you may get into an argument or you may get upset or whatever. But one thing that you can definitely do is take a little bit time for yourself and say, let me take a few deep breaths in and out. Let me feel that calm space in between, because when you start doing that, you're able to access, something that is calm inside you, a clarity inside you, sense inside you, and you'll say to yourself, why am I getting upset over this? It's not worth it, right? All it takes is that little moment of pause to to kind of discern, to see, what am I doing to myself? Before I can even heal others, what am I doing to myself? How am I treating myself? Is this really worth all my overthinking and getting upset and all that? No, it's not. So there is that chance that we have at every moment of our life where we can pause, we can stop, we can calm ourselves down, and we can use that original sense or that original wisdom that we've all been given. And that wisdom is to go towards healing rather than hurting. When we do this life too fast, we are going more towards hurting than healing, right? So that's something that I wanted to just put out there. What else is there that we hold in our attitude that's hurtful, and what can we change so that, we can again reverse that equation, right? And of course, we all know that life is all about giving and taking, giving and taking, right? How many of you think that giving is healing or taking is healing? Yeah. Which one is more healing, you think?
Giving.
Is giving more healing?
Giving.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, giving more, giving provides more healing.
Really?
And really,
Mm. Anybody think otherwise? I guess you must be all speaking from experience, right?
yeah,
Yes, yes.
I think receiving is also a healing,
Mm,
particularly when it comes as a blessing.
beautiful, beautiful. Yes. I think it depends on what we are giving and what we are receiving also, correct?
Right.
Yes, yes. When you think of giving or receiving, we are usually thinking just about physical. But even when we talk about the physical, I think we all have this experience that when somebody is in need of something, and when you have that something and you kind of take it out of your pocket, and when when you're able to say, oh, I have what you need, and when you just offer it, even it may be just a little safety pin, right? Sometimes it happens, somebody's just looking for a safety pin, and it's very important for them at that time, and you happen to have it in your handbag and you just hand it to them. How good you feel. So it wasn't just
very
about,
nice.
you know because as soon as you're being useful to somebody, right, there is an upliftment of spirit already in that moment, and you feel like, that's, you're feeling lighter. Even if you had a little pain, sometimes it goes away. We have some older people here and people who are not so, well to do here in Peace Village. And of course, obviously their body must be in pain. But as soon as we say to them, today we really need your help, can you come and help us? And of course, they will do it, and they'll go out of their way to not even think about their pain and come and do it. And after that, what do you think they feel? They say, I didn't know where that pain disappeared. You know, I had such a bad backache, or my hands were paining so much. But as soon as I started chopping the vegetables, it went away. And then when I went back to my room again, I got it back again. So sometimes it does happen that at that moment of giving, at that moment of sharing, At the moment of being useful, it really uplifts the spirit. And this is kind of something that I think we all need to look at in the big picture of things. That we've come to a point in time where we're all in a lot of need. We've become very needy. The soul has kind of depleted itself of a lot of positive energy. And so we are always looking, even when we do physically, we want recognition, for example, or we want to be appreciated, for example. And that also is a kind of receiving, right? Looking for something that you should be appreciated. And when we're not appreciated, we feel bad about it. So giving and receiving, it has a lot to do with the physical, but also with our spiritual stage, our subtle stage, where we are doing what we're doing, we're giving from a state of fullness. We're not giving because we want something in return or we're expecting something in return, but when we are really giving from a state of total fullness, I have it and this is my nature, and therefore I'm sharing, whether it is love, whether it is patience, whether it is understanding. This is the only way I can be, and therefore I'm sharing that with you. So that's the kind of healing I think that the world needs today. And we all have to rise to the occasion, right? And how do we do that? Only if we keep ourselves full, right? If we allow ourselves to be depleted, we wouldn't be able to do that for a long time. Maybe for a few days we can do it, but we have to constantly be fueling ourselves with that pure energy, hmm, the spiritual energy from the divine. So giving as healing. And again, that has to do with an attitude that we have built over time. Over a period of time, we have built an attitude of taking, I wanting, receiving, I want more, I want more, I want more. And now it's more, you know, coming back to that simple way of living and being there to offer yourself and offer whatever you have in the time of need for other people's help. So that's the other way in which I think we can shift that attitude to one of hurting to one of healing. The other connection that I see a lot with is, when it comes to the attitude of healing, has to do with time, you know, especially for those of us who are in the field of, healthcare. This is one of our major complaints, that we don't have time enough with patients, right? We have so much to do in terms of computer work, chart work, do this, do this, all the logistics, that we're not even looking at the person, interacting properly, that common basic human interaction between a person to person, even that is missing. And that could also apply to your own family, that you don't get time enough for your own selves, for each other, whether it is your children or whether it is your spouse, you get hardly to see each other even for a few minutes each day, let alone eating together, eating a meal together. You don't get that. So what do we do? It is the state of affairs. We may be in a situation where we have very little time. But one thing I found very helpful is to again look at time not as the master, but myself as the master. In other words, I'm the one who gives quality to time. And time can be qualified. Time is not just about quantity. Time is about quality of the consciousness that you're able to maintain in any given moment, right? So I always used to tell my patients, parents, when they used to say, my child has this problem, he's night walking, he doesn't sleep well. Now, all of that has what? Maybe perhaps doesn't get quality time with the parents. So, and of course, they would say that, I can't afford to. I'm working all the time. And, by the time I come home, he's tired, he's going to sleep. And I'm tired, I want to go to sleep. But no, even if we can take 5 minutes, right, with each other, but quality conversation, time, and it is really about the quality of our consciousness. It's not under the pressure of, oh, did you do this? Did you do that? Why didn't you do that? Most of the times we are interacting on a superficial level. And so that doesn't help to heal whatever has happened to that child in school the whole day, right? Maybe there was something that went in, that he was feeling bad about, that you need to kind of talk it through. So all of that requires just your presence, even if it is 5 minutes, just your calm, cool presence, acknowledging that person as a soul, not even necessarily your child, your son, but just as a human person, as a beautiful child of God. Can we interact on that level? So that, that's expanding time, I think, is one of the ways that we can really add that healing quality to ourselves, especially for those of us who are in intimate contact and that contact time seems to be very limited. This is what we can do in terms of adding that quality of healing qualities, so to speak. Also, you know, we have forgotten to be human. Like I was saying, everything is mechanistic. Everything is what to do next, how did it happen? Everything is on a superficial level. But what about addressing our feelings, addressing the way we, um, impact each other, the way we kind of act and, with each other. So it's very important to, even if it is something that I have done wrong, for example, it's okay. I can accept it. It's okay for me to accept my own mistakes. And in fact, I find that that's one of the most powerful ways, tools of healing, to actually accept myself as I am and to accept my actions, whether they are good and positive or whether they are the other way around. Sometimes we do things not knowingly, not consciously, and yet, it has hurt somebody. It's had a negative impact on something. And as soon as I realize, I can say, yes, I should not have done that, but I will change. I will pay more attention next time. But if we don't allow that to happen, and if we allow our ego to kick in and to support that mistake, one on top of the other, on top of the other, we are bringing that feeling of burden on the self, right? And that is hurting ourselves more than healing ourselves, let alone the relationship with each other. That's another story. Of course, we're not going to be able to rectify what's happened. But first and foremost, what am I doing to my own self? Let me just be in that human level of acknowledging, accepting, appreciating. These are all the basic human abilities that we have been gifted with. And so are we using it, or are we just operating on a mechanistic way? And it happens even with highly spiritual people, even, when we get too busy with something, we can get very, ordinary in our way of interacting, just getting things done. And I am speaking for myself, actually. So when it gets very hectic, I do forget that, I have forgotten to acknowledge this person that I'm working with as a human soul, as a beautiful being. I have forgotten to do that. And when that happens, you know, I'm in my own ego. And that's the most hurtful thing, I think. The next thing that I want to also address is attitude, and has a lot to do with attitude. That if I have developed an attitude that is not in keeping with my original nature, my own true nature of peace and love, and I'm not stable in that awareness of peace and love, then I tend to react to things more than act, right? And there are plenty of opportunities in every day. Every moment is a choice for us to act or to react. Yes. Every interaction, every action, even habits, that we have created over time. Sometimes, they're just routine. And that also I feel is a reaction. It's a reaction to what I have already, built as my habit. But can I be very original, you know, in my pure awareness of who I am, what this situation needs from me, what this person is asking of me? Can I just be in that moment and start fresh? Mm, Almost like we say, we often compare our action reaction cycle. When we act, it's like sowing a seed, something fresh, something new that's going to bring beautiful fruits and flowers. And when I'm in the bondage of actions and I'm reacting to something that has already happened in the past, I'm keeping that in my memory and therefore I'm reacting in certain way. Then what am I doing is I'm binding myself even more and more, like I'm putting myself in handcuffs on myself. This is the only way I can be. And usually you will find that when I react, it leads me in a negative direction, in a direction of feeling negative about something. Whereas if I take that moment to say, no, even the person may have done this to me before, but let me take my own moment and let me be original in my way of understanding this person and letting go. Sometimes it may have to do with forgiving, letting go. It's okay. I can do that. Mm. And so then it's like starting something new for the other person. And that I feel is healing, very healing. And this particular time that we are in this state of the world that we are in, the state of relationships, whether it's personal or, in a more social or even on a national, international level, racial level, whatever it is, we are mostly doing whatever we are doing based on past. We were treated like this, and therefore we are going to be treating you like this. And of course, there may be a lot of truth in it, but where does the cycle stop? Where does the vicious cycle stop? It doesn't, right? It goes on, increasing the negativity in the world. And so this is our time to take that stand and say, no, we are, as human beings, we are divine. We have a lot of divine qualities in us. Let's call those qualities, to come to our rescue now. Let's put aside whatever went wrong and let's start fresh. So I think this is an important element of, how personally we can heal ourselves, our relationships, and of course, heal nature also, the same thing. If you look at just, the superficial or the physical ways, I should say, of healing nature, like, so many things that we are doing for climate change. But people say it still looks so hopeless. Where is the hope? And we say, yes, the hope is really in the shift in the spiritual. When we start really looking at all the elements of nature with that pure regard and love and respect and start, acting in that way, that's when we can heal nature, right? So that, of course, also applies to the body, how I can really give healing vibrations to the body as if it is okay, it is normal, it's given me so much service. So now it's time for me to give it service, right? So to talk to myself very gently, very positively, and with a lot of hope to myself. So not to react to what the body is doing, but to act with a lot of love, respect, give it the proper rest and comfort, right? And so on and so forth. And most importantly, I think what really ultimately heals us as individuals and heals the whole world, the universe, if you may, is when we are able to tap into that source, the energy of divinity, the divine, the one healing force, the ultimate healing force, the one who is completely, absolutely positive, and the one who has absolute love for us as humanity and also for nature. Can we take a few moments every day to say, that yes, I am very intimately connected with that divine. Why? Because I too have that spark of the divine in me. I am that divine soul. Inside myself are those same beautiful, positive life qualities that that one has. So let me connect with that one and draw from that positive energy, right? This is what healing is all about. So that the hurt can be let go, the hurt can be forgotten, the hurt can be diluted, to whatever level. And of course, we don't really know, which part of the soul is hurting, right? And yet, there is something that is lacking, which is why sometimes we react, or we looking for recognition, or we're looking for this or looking for that. So now is the time to really go to that ultimate surgeon, right? The supreme surgeon, we call him the spiritual surgeon, so that that spiritual healing and the healing of the hearts can happen. It's the hearts that have been damaged, and therefore we are having lots of problems with the heart also. Yes. So now it's time to heal the spiritual heart of humanity by connecting with that divine, right? So I just realized that you may be holding many thoughts in your mind even as I was speaking. So please respond, or if there's anything that we need more clarification on before we go into our meditation.
And the art of saying no, as we already know, does it stands anywhere in spiritualism?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, the subject of taking care of ourselves is so huge and so much is involved in it. And one of the things, as I said, is saying no. Remember, I talked about,
Yeah.
in a superficial way, I talked about taking care of ourselves, giving ourselves enough rest, giving the right kind of time and all of that. Yes, and that means that sometimes we have to say no to certain things, right? Because it's encroaching on our territory of well-being or safety, or you know, feeling good. And so we have to be just discreet. We are not saying no because of negativity, but we are saying no in terms of just taking care of the self. But at the same time, that no is also accompanied by a lot of good wishes, right? Internally, even though I am not able to do what this person is asking me to do, I still maintain a lot of good wishes that yes, this whatever he's asking, she's asking, can get accomplished, and they will get enough help from someone else, right? So we shouldn't, hold any kind of negative feelings for that person, for example, right? And so doing it with a lot of positivity and self-respect, maintaining it's almost like each one of us is given a little space for ourselves, like just like the body is our space too. In the same way, we have a spiritual space for ourselves, a space of holding ourselves in our own self-image and self-respect. So sometimes when people encroach on it too much, we have to be discerning, and we have to say, this is taking away from my freedom, or my sense of who I am, or my sense of values. I don't believe in this. So we may have to say no to certain things in that way, but internally never holding any negative feelings for anyone. This is part of what they call compassion towards ourselves. We have to be a little bit strict with ourselves. And this is another form of compassion.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we use generally all types of qualities of our soul. Otherwise, if we just pick up one, then I think we will be making wrong habits in others, no?
Right. Yes. And there are opposites of qualities also.
Yeah, yeah,
So you have to be balanced in your qualities. No, sometimes, for example, you can be very helpful, very resourceful. Anybody comes and asks you to help, you're ready to help. That's a good quality. Sometimes that same quality can work against you because then you're not able to finish, what you started. Right when you started something, somebody came and
yes,
asked you for help, and you say, okay, I'll come and help.
yes,
The
yes.
other one is left out. So you're
Mhm.
lacking focus then, right? You're very helpful, very flexible, but the focus is not there. So in this way, full spiritual growth has to do with developing all these qualities. And that also is part of healing, right? Whatever is missing in the soul, we have to kind of keep adding it, recognize it, realize it, and keep adding that element consciously, and of course, with the help of the divine. Mm. The best part of this journey is that we are not just left to ourselves to do our own healing. There is someone sitting and helping us. They say, no, even the touch heals sometimes. So the touch, we don't, of course, God doesn't touch us physically, but God touches us through thoughts, through vibrations, through beautiful, pure feelings. And we have to be able to catch that, to experience that kind of healing and filling ourselves with that.
Yeah, that's very right, Didi. Thank you so much. Mhm.
Question G.
Gee,
Yeah, I live in an environment. I know the place where I have to deal with. She gets into real tantrums. Every single day by habit, I'm being picked up for nothing. I'm not wrong. I know I'm not wrong. Even if I talk to some person a little 2 or 3 minutes, I talk not to have pleasure but to help out. That's misunderstood. That is one environment. The second environment is the persons I live with. I don't blame her. She has got cheated many a times, but there is doubt in her mind. Like if you move to the left, oh, I kept this there, it's missing, what has happened? So in an environment like that, sometimes it squishes my brain, oh God, now what do I do? What do I do? Of course, as you say, I turn to the divine. That's the only solution I have. Also I keep blessing these people. Sometimes I get mad and to be honest, all let everything go wrong in this. But again, I draw myself, pull myself. I say, no, 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 no. Bless them, bless them. Om Shanti, bless them, God, bless them, Father. So what do I do myself? How do I continue? I have to continue living here because I'm just, I just came to see my kids and I found that they are not living close by and I had to live in somebody else's home. So I thank God yet again I've got a good home. She also knows the Brahma Kumaris and has and I'm the only single person with her. And the other place I got to work with, that girl, she always get into tantrums. Her, even with her husband irritates her, kids irritate her. So that's the person whom I got to deal with. What do you have to say with this? In short, I just presented it all to you. How do I have to help them, I guess, and help myself too. I break down, I really break down.
Yeah, it's difficult. Like I was saying before, no, right now we are at a situation in the world, everybody is facing similar situations. You may think that only you're facing this, but everybody is facing kind of similar situation. That unreasonable personality or demanding or not understanding or anything like that. And that person may say the same thing about me too. I may be in the same boat also. So what I can do is take care of myself in terms of how I can protect myself, how I don't get affected by their comments or by their responses. Because once I believe in what I'm doing is correct, is helpful, is coming from a positive, attitude, then I should not get affected. I should be able to what we call as, untouched. We should not be touched by the comments of others. And that, as you said, it happens when we are able to be constantly under the influence of the divine energy, taking directions from that divine energy, not having the ego that I'm so good and this one doesn't recognize me. No, it's I'm with God. I'm doing whatever I feel is good according to what I'm feeling from God. And still, if it is not understood, it's not my responsibility, right? To, to kind of not be touched by that. Maintain that love, but don't be affected, right? So
Thank
this is
you, G.
the most beautiful and most important practice that we need to maintain.
Didi, do you
Okay,
leave
thank
the
you.
topics, the main points of your lectures with the organizers who organize this lecture? Because if we need, because we know all these things, but even then, such a beautiful lecture, if supposing we can get the major points of your lecture, that will be, I think, all the more useful. Otherwise, we listen everything and we can't ride on all the important features. And it will be great if supposing we can get the at least the major points of your lecture.
Transcript, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Om
Is it possible?
Shanti. Yeah, it is possible. You can send us your email and we can send you that
Thank
today.
you, thank you, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kalaben, very,
Thank
very
you,
much.
thank
It was
you.
so nice that she really touched the main point about the acceptance. Then she will taste about breathing. And also lastly about that send over to connect with the divine being. And while experiencing this thing, you can see how much healing you can have in your mind. So let's Kalaben now. She will take us into meditation. And then afterwards, our meditation 6:30 will continue.
So let's take a few moments to refresh our memory and our awareness. These are the roots of the attitude that we hold at any given time. I remember that as a human being, I have been gifted with beautiful qualities of life. Most importantly, being peaceful, loving, caring, respectful, these are all my natural qualities. And the first one to receive all these qualities is my own self. the peace that I hold in my mind, the first to receive this peace in the form of vibrations is my own breath, my own body. So when I breathe, I'm not just breathing in air or breathing out air, but I'm also breathing in peace and love. And in the form of vibrations, this peace and love reach to all the cells and all the parts of the body, relaxing, healing, and reviving them. And further, as I continue to maintain this state of my original pure positive qualities, I'm able to draw from that divine source of positivity and purity. That even if I have anything left in my mind that is not making me feel good, with the influence and the impact of the rays of the divine, I'm able to let go of it. What I'm getting in the form of positive experience now is so much more than what I was holding on to in the form of a negative experience. I value this moment, this experience much more. This is what nurtures me. This is what comforts me and heals me back to my state of balance and wholeness. And now that I feel I can do this for myself, I feel strong to stand up and be available for giving and sharing and healing others as an instrument of the divine. And this leaves me with an attitude filled with hope and faith in the bright future that we all hold together. Om Shanti.
Shanti.
Om Shanti.